Clark reminded everybody who she is in the Fever win over the Wings in what was a blowout victory. One where Clark didn't even shoot the ball well again, but she completely dominated the game and shows the difference between her and everyone else through her playmaking.
The Indiana Fever have flipped the script in record time, transforming from the league's favorite punchline into its most compelling headline almost overnight. And right at the eye of this whirlwind revival stands their Iowa-born superstar, Caitlin Clark, finally set free like a long-caged force of nature after months of being treated less like a franchise cornerstone and more like an afterthought.
Caitlin Clark said, folks, forget what she's talking about. Today, I'm gonna run the show. Today, I'm going to control the pace. Today, I'm going to dictate how this team plays basketball. And in the first half, we saw exactly that. Natasha Howard running the floor. Yeah, you heard that correct. Natasha Howard running the floor. Yeah, I shit you. Folks, fans have a voice. Sometimes when the noise gets too loud and they're tired of hearing from it, they say, let's just buy in a little bit. Let's let Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Let's not pull the reins back too much. And in that first half, we saw exactly that.
Let's rewind a few weeks, shall we? The Fever locker room felt tighter than a holiday dinner where someone casually mentions politics. The energy? Ice cold. The chemistry? So absent it wouldn't have passed a basic science experiment. But now they're clicking. Rotations are crisp. Passes are sharp. Confidence is contagious. They're operating like a precision-built machine, the kind NASA might design if its engineers had a side gig in basketball sorcery.
That's what we're talking about when we are referring to Caitlin Clark running the show. Caitlin Clark running the offense, being the innovator of offense, the distributor of offense for the Indiana Fever. This is exactly what we mean right here. This game was an absolute blowout. Dallas Wings didn't know what hit them. Everybody ate in this game.
The real turning point? When DeWanna Bonner packed her bags, and that me-first energy walked right out the door with her. She arrived like she was headlining Coachella, only to realize this wasn't her solo tour. This was already Caitlin Clark's stage. Bonner tried to position herself as the centerpiece of a puzzle that already had Clark's name etched into the middle. It felt like someone attempting to swap out the Mona Lisa for a selfie, and expecting the Louvre to applaud the upgrade.
So, the Indiana Fever just released her, cut their losses, right? And I hear these analysts saying stuff like, they should have held out for a trade, or I wish they had got a trade for her. She was literally untradeable. Right? Like, what team would give up any of their core players for a player that's past their twilight? They picked up R.A. McDonald, or re-signed R.A. McDonald, who we all saw was a spark plug just a couple weeks ago. She's an upgrade compared to DeWanna Bonner.
Bonner's departure wasn't just a roster adjustment, it felt like a full-blown reset. The second she emptied that locker, the atmosphere shifted. The tension dissolved. The air got lighter. It was the kind of collective exhale you don't just hear, you feel. If you listen closely, it almost sounded like a pressure valve finally releasing after months of buildup. The storm clouds cleared, the energy recalibrated, and suddenly the locker room didn't feel divided anymore. It felt aligned.
Because we've seen a huge change. We've seen a huge change from the Indiana Fever over the last 6 quarters. And especially in the fourth quarter, in the Dallas Wings game. And there were 2 players in particular that I have said that their style of play, regardless of how they're playing, is not going to work long term. And those 2 players had unbelievable games yesterday.
If you're enjoying this, make sure you hit subscribe. The Fever didn't just lose a player, they dropped the extra weight that had been dragging them down the standings. It was addition by subtraction. Like finally pulling out a splinter that's been irritating you for months, the relief was instant. The air felt cleaner. The movement felt lighter. And then, everything shifted. The clouds parted. The energy flipped. The Indiana Fever started playing like a team that actually liked playing together. Without that heavy cloud hanging over the locker room, the vibe changed almost overnight. Players who once looked drained and disconnected suddenly brought juice back to the floor. High fives, chest bumps, real smiles. The joy was visible. And when that kind of energy spreads, it doesn't just lift a roster, it reignites a fan base.
This team is like a sorority group. I'm not joking. They are so closely bonded, like the energy that all of them have with each other. There is not like where you see and someone looks a little disconnected. This is literally the most tight-knit team. I'm telling you, and I actually think all the discourse or the people trying to create discourse offline or outside the locker room only makes them tighter. And throughout the training session, I saw multiple times where, they were like laughing and mucking around and just completely like high-fiving and actually speaking of the high-five.
Enter Sophie Cunningham, the basketball equivalent of a triple espresso with no lid. While critics were preparing obituaries for the Fever's season, Cunningham grabbed the narrative by the collar and yelled, "We're not finished." She didn't quietly step into a bigger role, she rocketed into it with the subtlety of fireworks going off in a silent room. Overnight, she became everything at once. The emotional spark plug, the defensive tone setter, the locker room voice that refused to let the energy dip. When the team needed fuel, she didn't hand out candles, she lit bonfires. During timeouts, while others bent over catching their breath, Cunningham was animated, pointing, gesturing, mapping out scenarios mid-air like she was speed-running a masterclass in momentum. The intensity wasn't forced, it was contagious. And suddenly, the Fever didn't just look awake. They looked alive.
Play was probably the standout play in the game. In my mind, Clark with the big-time rejection near the rim. And then the get-ahead pass to Sophie Cunningham, touchdown. And Sophie Cunningham has come into her own as of late. But it's just beautiful. Get it out, get it up, bucket. And, that's just something others cannot do.
Her most important contribution? Realizing that building around Caitlin Clark wasn't a suggestion, it was the blueprint. Where some saw Clark as a threat to their touches, Cunningham saw her as the master key to everything the Fever could become. She understood that Clark's vision, range, and tempo weren't meant to compete with the system. They were the system waiting to happen. Cunningham became the connector, the translator, the bridge between veterans guarding their space and a generational talent expanding it. In practices, when Clark zipped a no-look pass through traffic or pulled from logo range without hesitation, Cunningham wasn't quiet about it. "That's it," she'd shout, loud enough for the entire gym to hear. Not just celebrating the play but reinforcing the message. This isn't selfish basketball. This is next-level basketball. Bit by bit, she reframed the narrative. Appreciation turned into buy-in. Buy-in turned into chemistry. And suddenly, what once looked like friction started to look like evolution.
All right, everyone who said that the Fever played better without Caitlin Clark, come to the front because I'm going to slap you in the face. Fever just won 102-89 against the Dallas Wings. Congratulations to the Fever. They killed it with their old and trusty playbook of just rim running. And Dallas Wings, Chris Koklanis, have you never seen a Fever game before? They're fast in transition, huge with the long bombs. Caitlin Clark is there. Run to the other side quickly. That's where they got the majority of their points. Poor Paige Beckers. You're such a huge talent, and you're just drowning with this terrible coaching. It breaks my heart, but it was an incredible game until the last quarter when it was very clear that the Fever would take it.
Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark was going through a transformation of her own. After spending months feeling like a guest in her own space, she didn't storm in demanding control. She earned it the hard way. Through grit. Through production. Through a work ethic that never blinked, even when the spotlight got heavy. The Clark we're seeing now isn't just playing, she's orchestrating. Every pass feels intentional. Every deep three lands like punctuation. She controls pace, spacing, rhythm, like a conductor guiding a full orchestra through a perfectly timed crescendo. She's no longer the rookie searching for approval. She's the axis everything spins around. The gravity, the tempo setter, the player who elevates teammates simply by existing within the action. And the shift has been dramatic. Watching early season Fever games now feels like flipping through footage from a completely different timeline. One where confidence was muted and chemistry hadn't found its spark yet. Today, the joy is visible, the flow is real, and the evolution is undeniable.